I want to tell you about the most hated fruit in the produce aisle. Not hated because it tastes bad. Hated because it's a hassle. It stains your fingers. It takes 10 minutes to open. Half of it ends up in the trash. Most people grab it once around the holidays, curse at it for a few minutes, and never go back. But here's what almost nobody knows about that fruit sitting ignored in the corner of your grocery store. It is the only natural substance ever tested in a rigorous clinical trial with real patients, real imaging, real measurement that did not just slow down arterial plaque. It physically shrank it. Not 5%, not 10%, 30%. In 12 months. And the part that should make you angry? The way almost every person on Earth eats this fruit or drinks it does the exact opposite. It accelerates the damage they think they're preventing. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why. You're going to understand the 5 biological mechanisms happening inside your arteries right now that your doctor has almost certainly never explained. And you're going to know the one critical difference between consuming this fruit in a way that heals and consuming it in a way that quietly harms. Let's start with what's actually going wrong inside your arteries. Because the number on your cholesterol panel is not the full story. Not even close. Here's something your doctor may have never explained to you about cholesterol. LDL cholesterol, the one everyone calls bad, doesn't actually cause heart attacks on its own. What causes the damage is oxidized LDL. And those are 2 very different things. Think of regular LDL like iron. Strong, structural, belongs in the body. Now think about what happens when iron gets wet. It rusts. Rust is still iron, but it's degraded, brittle, reactive, and it destroys whatever it touches. Oxidized LDL is rusted cholesterol. When a free radical, a rogue oxygen molecule circulating in your blood, collides with a normal LDL particle, it chemically corrupts it. And that rusted cholesterol doesn't bounce off artery walls the way healthy LDL does. It burrows Indiana. Here's where it gets troubling. There is a test that measures oxidized LDL specifically. It's called the OxLDL test. Most cardiologists can order it. Most insurance covers it. And most patients have never had it done because it's not part of the standard cardiovascular workup. The standard panel measures your total LDL, your HDL, your triglycerides. It tells you the amount of iron. It does not tell you how much of that iron has turned to rust. Statins lower the total iron count. They do not stop iron from becoming rust. So a person can have a perfectly managed LDL number while the oxidation process keeps running unchecked and the plaque keeps quietly building. 3 things produce the free radicals that start this rusting process: chronic arterial inflammation, cigarette smoke, past or present, and the natural oxidative stress that comes with aging. The body's own antioxidant systems begin to decline meaningfully after 50 and accelerate from there. None of these are addressed by a statin. So what actually happens when rusted cholesterol reaches your artery wall? Your immune system detects it as a threat. It sends in its cleanup crew, white blood cells called macrophages, to consume the oxidized LDL and remove it. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. The macrophage is not the villain here. It's a hero doing its job. The problem is what happens when the rusting never stops. As long as oxidation keeps converting normal LDL into rusted LDL, the macrophages keep arriving, keep eating, and keep getting overwhelmed. They eat and eat until they can't function anymore. They get stuck in the artery wall, bloated, toxic, and dying. At that point, scientists give them a name: foam cells. Picture a cleanup crew that arrived to remove the garbage, ate too much of it, died in the hallway, and became the blockage. Then more crews arrived to clean up the dead ones, ate too much, died too. And more came. And more died. The hallway fills. That accumulation of dead immune cells is the necrotic core, not a foreign invader. Your own immune system, destroyed by the very thing it was sent to remove. When millions of foam cells pile up inside the artery wall, they form what we call plaque. And wrapped around that toxic core is a thin fibrous cap, the only thing standing between that biological time bomb and your bloodstream. This is the structure that kills people, not the cholesterol number. The foam cells that formed because the cholesterol was oxidized. You've been told your HDL is the good cholesterol because it removes cholesterol from your arteries. That part is true. But what you've almost never been told is why HDL does that and why, in most people over 65, it stopped doing it effectively. HDL doesn't work alone. It carries a microscopic enzyme on its surface called peroxynase, 1PN1 for short. Think of PN1 as a biological sniper. Its entire job is to travel through your bloodstream, find oxidized LDL before it reaches your artery wall, and destroy it. The reason HDL is good isn't the HDL itself. It's the sniper riding on its back. And here is the problem that no standard blood panel reveals. As we age, PON1 activity declines significantly. The sniper falls asleep. The HDL is still circulating. It still shows up on your panel as a reassuring number. But without active PON1, it's doing almost nothing useful. A guard who is present, on the clock, and sound asleep while the threat walks right past. Clinical data consistently shows PON1 activity declining meaningfully after age 50. By 70, most people have significantly reduced function compared to their younger years. The oxidized LDL circulates unchallenged. The foam cells accumulate, and the HDL number on the panel looks perfectly fine. Because nobody measured what the HDL was actually doing. Just that it existed. Something specific wakes that sniper back up. I'll show you what in a moment. Here's the mechanism that determines whether you have a heart attack tomorrow morning or not. Plaque doesn't kill you by existing. Plaque kills you by rupturing. Stable plaque, plaque with a thick, intact fibrous cap, can sit inside an artery for decades without causing an event. The cap holds, the toxic core stays sealed, blood flows around it, and the person lives. This is what your cardiologist means when they say the plaque looks stable. But inside that plaque, a group of enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases, MMPs, is constantly working to destroy that cap. Think of them as microscopic scissors. Under normal conditions, they do healthy tissue maintenance. Inside an inflamed artery, they go into overdrive. They cut the collagen in the fibrous cap. They thin it. They weaken it. They keep cutting until it's paper thin. And then one morning, your blood pressure surges a little higher than usual. The cap ruptures. The necrotic core floods the bloodstream. The body forms an emergency clot in seconds. A vessel that was partially blocked becomes fully blocked. That is the heart attack. That is the stroke. The one that arrives without warning in a body whose numbers were being managed beautifully. Now here's what makes this mechanism especially unsettling. Inflammatory signals in the body peak between 4 and 6 in the morning. The MMP scissors are running fastest at exactly the same time blood is thickening, blood pressure is rising, and the body's defenses are at their most vulnerable. The plaque is at its most fragile at 4 a.m. Nobody told you to worry about that. Nobody is measuring the scissors. Because MMP activity is not on a standard blood panel. Something chemically blunts those scissors. And it happens to be the same substance that wakes the PON1 sniper, triggers foam cell evacuation, and produced a result in a clinical trial that no pharmaceutical compound has ever matched. It's time to tell you what it is. The pomegranate. Specifically, a class of polyphenol found in the pomegranate in concentrations that exist nowhere else in the plant kingdom. They're called punicalagins. And when they enter your bloodstream, they do something no pharmaceutical compound has been designed to do, not because scientists haven't tried, but because the biology is extraordinarily complex. They address 5 distinct mechanisms simultaneously. Mechanism 1, foam cell evacuation, those bloated macrophages packed with oxidized cholesterol, stuck inside your artery wall forming the necrotic core. Punicalagins trigger a biological command called cholesterol efflux. The foam cells are essentially forced to release the oxidized cholesterol they've been holding. It gets expelled back into the bloodstream, where the liver can process and remove it. The necrotic core begins to hollow out. The plaque physically shrinks from the inside. Mechanism 2, waking the sniper. Clinical research on pomegranate extract has shown PON1 activity increasing by up to 20%. The sleeping sniper wakes up. The HDL that has been circling uselessly becomes actively aggressive against oxidized LDL. The rust is being hunted and destroyed before it reaches the artery wall. Mechanism 3. Blunting the scissors. Punicalagins are a direct chemical inhibitor of the MMP enzymes that cut the fibrous cap. They bind to the scissors and stop them from cutting. The fibrous cap, no longer being thinned from beneath, thickens. Plaque that was vulnerable to rupture becomes stable. The covered manhole stays covered. Mechanism 4. Cellular renewal in the heart. There's a compound called urolithin A that gets produced when gut bacteria metabolize the ellagic acid in pomegranate. It enters the bloodstream, travels to the heart muscle and arterial lining, and triggers something called mitophagy, the body's internal cellular recycling program. Old, inefficient, toxin-leaking mitochondria in the cardiac cells get identified, dismantled, and replaced with new, clean, efficient ones. The pomegranate is the raw ingredient. Your gut bacteria are the manufacturing facility. We'll come back to why that distinction matters enormously. Mechanism 5. The nitric oxide umbrella. Your artery walls produce a molecule called nitric oxide, the signal that tells the artery to relax, open, and let blood through. Every blood pressure medication in the world is trying to replicate what nitric oxide does naturally. The problem is a specific free radical called the superoxide radical. In any body with arterial inflammation, it intercepts the nitric oxide milliseconds after production, before it ever reaches the smooth muscle. The artery never gets the signal to open. The superoxide and nitric oxide react to form a toxic compound that then damages the very enzyme producing the nitric oxide. The cycle accelerates. The artery stiffens. Punicalagins act as a biological umbrella for nitric oxide, neutralizing the superoxide before it intercepts the signal. The nitric oxide survives long enough to reach the smooth muscle. The artery relaxes. 5 mechanisms. 1 fruit. And now let's look at what happened when researchers actually tested this in real human beings. Dr. Michael Aviram and his team at Rambam Medical Center in Israel took patients with severe carotid artery stenosis, heavy plaque filled up in the neck arteries feeding the brain, and gave them pomegranate daily for 1 year. The control group, who received nothing, saw their carotid intima-media thickness, the measurable wall thickness of their plaque, grow by 9% over 12 months. Standard progression. Expected. The disease advancing quietly. The pomegranate group? Their plaque didn't slow down. It didn't flatten out. It shrank by up to 30% in 12 months. Imaging confirmed. Reproducible. Real. Their systolic blood pressure dropped by an average of 21 points, not from medication changes, not from dietary overhaul. From the 5 mechanisms we just walked through, operating simultaneously. To understand why this matters, you need to know something about cardiovascular medicine. There are 2 categories of cardiovascular intervention. The first slows progression, statins, blood pressure medications, lifestyle changes. The goal of the current standard of care is management. Slowing, not reversal. Reversal is considered, in most clinical circles, not achievable. The Aviram trial produced reversal. In patients with documented severe disease. In 1 year. This study has been sitting in the cardiovascular research literature for 2 decades, and most people have never heard of it. Now you have. Now stop. Before you pull out your phone and order pomegranate juice, I need to tell you about the trap. Because this is where most people go wrong, and going wrong here doesn't just waste your money. It actively makes things worse. If you walk into a grocery store and buy commercial pomegranate juice, the red, smooth, sweet liquid in the refrigerated section, you are not getting the Aviram result. You're not getting the punicalagins. You're not waking the sniper, evacuating the foam cells, or blunting any scissors. You're drinking a concentrated fructose delivery system. Here's why. Commercial pomegranate juice is pasteurized, heated to extreme temperatures that destroy the polyphenol compounds. It's stripped of the bitter parts of the fruit to make it palatable to sell at scale. What remains after that process is essentially sugar water with pomegranate color. And the fructose in that juice? It generates oxidative stress. It triggers insulin release. It actively damages the protective lining of your arterial walls, the exact damage you were trying to prevent. There's a second mistake that's just as common. Think about how most people eat a fresh pomegranate. They cut it open, pick out the red jewel-like seeds, maybe squeeze some juice, and throw away the white spongy inner pith and the leathery outer peel. They feel good about it. They ate pomegranate. The highest concentration of punicalagins is not in the red seeds. It's in the white pith, the peel, the bitter, astringent parts that everyone discards. The medicine is in the garbage. There are two approaches that actually deliver what the research demonstrates. Approach 1. The whole fruit blend by a fresh pomegranate. Remove the seeds, but keep a generous tablespoon or 2 of the white inner pith. Add both to a blender with about 8 ounces of water. Blend it whole. Do not strain it. Drink it. It will taste bitter, astringent, like something that doesn't belong in a juice glass. That bitterness is the punicalagins. That is the taste of the medicine. If it tastes sweet and pleasant, the medicine has been removed. Approach 2. Standardized whole fruit extract, a capsule containing pomegranate whole fruit extract, peel, pith, and seeds processed together and concentrated, standardized to at least 40% ellagic acid and punicalagins. 0 grams of sugar. No fructose spike. No insulin response. No glycocalyx damage. And because it's standardized, the concentration is consistent in every dose. Something a fresh pomegranate, depending on its variety and ripeness, can't guarantee. The microbiome factor, one more thing. The urolithin A mechanism, the one that triggers cellular renewal in the heart, only works if your gut bacteria can run the conversion. Research suggests only about 40% of people efficiently produce urolithin A from ellagic acid, and that production is highly variable based on gut health. If you've taken multiple rounds of antibiotics, eaten a low-fiber diet for years, or have significant gut dysbiosis, the manufacturing facility may be offline. The pomegranate passes through unused. The fix is not complicated: fermented foods daily. Kimchi, kefir, plain yogurt, sauerkraut. These support the bacterial populations responsible for the conversion. Fixing the gut is not a separate project from fixing the arteries. They are the same project. Here's what I want you to take from this video. The plaque in your arteries did not form because of one number on a blood panel. It formed because of a process: oxidation, immune response, enzymatic thinning, nitric oxide interception, that most routine appointments don't measure and most prescriptions don't address. The pomegranate addresses that process at 5 distinct levels. Not in theory, in a clinical trial, in real human beings, with imaging to prove it. But only if you consume it in a way that actually delivers the compounds that matter. The bitter parts, the pith, the peel, the whole fruit, not the sweetened, processed fraction that gets sold as medicine. If you've been drinking pomegranate juice thinking you were doing something good for your heart, and it never quite made sense why nothing changed, now you know why. Share this with someone in your life who has been told their cholesterol numbers are managed and is still wondering why they don't feel protected. Their numbers may look fine. The process may be running anyway. At your next appointment, ask your cardiologist about oxidized LDL, not total LDL, the oxidized fraction. Ask about carotid intima-media thickness imaging if you haven't had it. These are the measurements that reveal what's actually happening. And you have to ask for them by name. If this video gave you something useful, subscribe and hit the bell. We go deep on cardiovascular biology every week. And drop a comment below. Were you eating the seeds and throwing away the pith? You're not alone. Most people were. I'll see you in the next one.